What is going on, YouTube? I am Lamont at large. Today, once again, I am at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery here in Hollywood, California. If you thought that I was going to come to Hollywood Forever Cemetery and not visit Estelle Getty's grave, you would be crazy. This was the #1 grave that I wanted to see me coming out here. She is best known as playing Sophia Petrillo on The Golden Girls. Yeah, that is Mom. That is Mama. She was absolutely hilarious on that television show. I watched that show. I was 8 years old, and I would wait Saturday night, 9 p.m., NBC. The Golden Girls would come on. And then after that, it would be Empty Nest. I wasn't a fan of Empty Nest. I loved The Golden Girls. Arguably one of the funniest television shows of all time. I would ask you this. Leave a comment below. What are your top 5 funniest television shows of all time? I don't know if I can pick the funniest of all time, but here are my top 5. The Golden Girls, I Love Lucy, Martin, the Wayans Brothers, and the Three Stooges. Those are 5 of my top 5 funniest television shows ever. I believe those TV shows will be funny in 200, 300 years from now. And she was the funniest character. I mean, she made the show. It was just hilarious. And of course, they had a spinoff, Golden Palace, but you know, the Golden Girls is where it's at. And she died about 3 days before her 85th birthday. So rest in peace to Estelle Getty, one of the most iconic television characters in TV history. This here is the grave of Mel Blanc, man of 1,000 voices. If you don't know his name, you know the voices of the characters that you would watch as a child or that now your children watch on television. He did Porky Pig, Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Foghorn Leghorn. He practically did all of the Warner Brothers cartoon character voices. He was a vaudeville performer, did a lot of radio, and he was also the voice of Barney Rubble from the Flintstones and of George Jetson's boss. Jetson! Yep, that was him, Mel Blanc. This here is the grave of Chris Cornell. He is the lead singer of Soundgarden and Audio Slave. I did a part on his grave in my last video here at Hollywood Forever Cemetery. I'm simply showing the grave again because they did some changes. Last time I was here, it was just grass. I don't remember this desert landscape with these plants last time I was here. So it looks very, very good. He sang had an incredible range, incredible voice. One of my favorite songs, Jesus Christ Pose. That if you're a fan of rock music, go look that song up. I know some of you guys out there are younger kids. You might not have even heard of this guy before, but you know, tragic end to his life. He had millions of dollars. He was a good-looking guy. Chicks probably all over the place, just wanting to, you know, get to know him better, so to speak. And you know, the sad grip of what was in his mind took him away, but just an extremely talented musician. Chris Cornell. Will never be another voice like that. Rudolpho Valentino, but the world knows him as Rudolph Valentino. You could say this guy was the first Hollywood heartthrob, if you will. He was billed as the Latin lover, even though he was from Italy. And he was in the television picture industry when there was no sound. Everything was, you know, silent pictures then. And two of his biggest movies he made was The Sheik And of course, the four horsemen of the apocalypse. That movie, The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, that was the first movie ever to gross $1 million at the box office, and it is the 6th highest grossing silent movie of all time. During that time that movie was out, Rudolph Valentino was only making $350 a week, which still was good money, but it wasn't what he felt he was worth. And he would, for years, go back and forth with the movie industry, even leaving overseas because he got fed up with the American cinema process out here. He would get raises over the years. And finally, however, in the final year of his life, he had signed a contract where he was getting paid about $10,000 a week. However, he died in a hospital in New York. He had an infection of his lungs. Something in the pleural lining of his lungs got infected, and he died very young. But yeah, just very synonymous with good-looking guys, heartthrobs, and he will forever be in a legend of Hollywood. This is English-Australian actor Peter Finch. He is best remembered as his role of the crazed television anchorman Howard Beale in the 1976 film Network. He is known forever for these famous words.
So, I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
And he died on January 14th, 1977. He received an Academy Award posthumously for Best Actor for his role in that movie. This is actress Barbara Lamar. She was born in Yakima, Washington on July 28, 1896, and she moved with her family out to Los Angeles eventually, and she was a performer, like a dancer in vaudeville, and she moved to LA and became a screenwriter for the Fox Film Corporation. She was in about 20 movies or so, but her biggest career role was probably in the Three Musketeers. She was well known as a party girl. Maybe she partied a little bit too much, drank heavily. She was basically an alcoholic and just loved to party. If there was a party in the 1920s, I bet you if there was a party in 1922, 23, 24, 25, and 26, I bet you this girl was there in Hollywood. I bet you she was. And she was honored on the Hollywood Walk of Fame posthumously. She died of pulmonary tuberculosis and nephritis at the age of 29. I was walking past this columbarium, and as you can see right here, I noticed this guy. He was very, very young, and that's what caught my attention. And then I looked at the picture of him and his father. It looks like graduation day. And then I looked right here, and I said, I recognize that guy. That guy is from Bewitched. And I said, why does this guy have this guy's picture in the columbarium? And then when I looked at the bust, and then, what do you know? It's David White. He played Larry Tate on Bewitched. And that's him and his son. Very sad. This here is Joelolianski, writer, director, father, wit. He won an Emmy in 1988, and he directed a couple TV shows, including The Law and America's Favorite Bald Guy, other than me, Kojak. This here's the grave of Virginia Rappe, 1895 to 1921. Virginia Rappe was a model and a silent film actress. She, however, never appeared in any big movies. There were just small bit parts. However, she's famous, unfortunately, for her death, which occurred on September 9th, 1921, and the man associated with her murder, supposed murder, which was a actor by the name of Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle. If you don't know who Fatty Arbuckle is, I would say he was the biggest Hollywood actor from about the late teens to about 1921, about the time of her death. So Fatty was having a party at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco. He had rented a suite. Now, he wasn't even supposed to be going up there because he had canceled it because he was having his car serviced out here, and he was sitting down on a rag that was soaked in acid, and it burned through his pants, and he received about like second-degree burns on his butt and his back. So he was not in a mood to party at all, and he wanted to cancel it. He's like, I don't want to go up there. But his friend said, come on, there's going to be food, and I'll get some booze, and we'll get some ladies, whatever he told him. And so he ended up heading up to San Francisco and had a pretty big party, and Virginia Rappe attended that party. Now, here's where things get a little bit murky. He said, she said. It's been 100 years almost. Who knows what really happened? They were definitely seen together that night drinking. One person who is an eyewitness to what occurred says that Fatty Arbuckle told Virginia Rappe, hey, why don't you come to my room? We'll have some more drinks. She was drunk. She goes into his room, and they knocked on his door to see what was going on, like how come he left the party. And the witness said that when he opened the door, he had Virginia's hat on, and she could be seen sprawled out on his bed moaning. Now, the story that he says is that Virginia was really drunk, was sick, was throwing up all over the place. This girl, she was a party girl. She attended a lot of parties. That's what you kind of did back in the day if you wanted to be famous, you know what I mean? You go to parties, you hook up with guys, and maybe someone gets the part. Who knows? So she ended up going to the hospital, her being violently sick and her having a previous VD. Well, on September 9th, 1921, she fell into a coma and died of peritonitis and also of a ruptured bladder. Now, could Fatty Arbuckle rupture her bladder? He weighed well over 260 pounds. It could possibly be. He always denied having any involvement. He went through 3 manslaughter trials. Finally, on the 3rd one, he was acquitted of all the charges. Even the jury felt bad for him, but the damage had already been done. Fatty Arbuckle's career was absolutely ruined because into the eye of the public, he was nothing but a murderer. And Hollywood pictures, anybody associated with Hollywood wanted absolutely nothing to do with him. And Arbuckle died pretty much in obscurity. Nobody would touch him ever again after this whole thing. And coincidentally enough, there is rumors about this grave reportedly being haunted, and you can see a woman sometimes at night by the water right over here weeping. Is that the ghost of Virginia Rappe? Who knows? But rest in peace to this young girl. This is the grave of Don Adams. He played in one of my favorite television shows as a kid, Get Smart. He played Agent Maxwell Smart, one of the funniest TV shows. If anybody has never seen that show, look it up. It's really, really funny. And also, you may not have known this, but he was also the voice of a cartoon character, Inspector Gadget. Woohoo! Boom, Inspector Gadget. Okay. Go gadget copter, and then a helicopter propeller would come out of his hat. You guys got to go look up Inspector Gadget to know what I'm talking about. Anyways, I watched that cartoon as a kid. You may not also know this. He was a Marine veteran. He served in World War II. He was the only surviving member of his platoon at the Battle of Guadalcanal, and he almost died of malaria, but he was able to survive and he made it here. He was a stand-up comic, and that's how he became famous. Adams is not his actual name. His last name is Yami with a Y, or excuse me, Yarmy. The reason why he took his wife's name is because he got tired of being called last for auditions. So he's like, I'm going to take your name, and that way, Adams. And then you can see that plaque right there is him holding a shoe phone. That show was funny. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do tonight? I'm going to go see if anybody has uploaded any videos on YouTube of that TV show. I'm going to go watch it. It's hilarious. Ladies and gentlemen, Don Adams. Interred in this wall right here, in loving memory from the family, Benjamin Siegel, also known as Bugsy Siegel. He is probably known as, other than just being a famous gangster, he's probably best known as being the first gangster to move into Las Vegas. He helped develop and open the Flamingo Hotel. Originally, he was born in Brooklyn on February 28, 1906. And he was born poor. His parents were really, really poor. So to make money, him and his friends, they got together and they would basically threaten the vendors on the streets back in the days, the little pushcart vendors. Hey, you need to pay us protection money, or I don't know, your pushcart might accidentally get set on fire, one of those types of things. And that's what he did to make money. And later on, during Prohibition, when their alcohol wasn't available and it was illegal, he got into that racket. He made quite a bit of money, and then he moved on to gambling, so forth and so on. He's also credited, I guess if that's the word I want to use, with starting Murder Inc. What is Murder Inc? Well, basically it was a group of hired hitmen that the Jewish mafia and anybody else that was willing to pay the price to rub somebody out, you would go contact this guy and he would dispatch one of his men to put a bullet right in the back of your head or make you a pair of cement shoes. This guy was a killer. He was quite proficient with firearms, and if you crossed him, he had absolutely no problem with doing the job himself. He was never, however, caught for any murders whatsoever. So who knows how many people he's actually killed by his own hand. If you can see at the bottom of the screen, there's some lipstick stains from his admirers coming to visit him. And on June 20th, 1947, the saying goes, you live by the sword and you die by the sword. He was in his house. He had a girlfriend at the time, Virginia Hill, and he was sitting on the couch and somebody shot him through the window 3 times in the head, killing him instantly. An unsolved murder. I don't really think people are going to be too interested, or at least the police department, with solving the murder. However, there's been rumors out there, so people pretty much know who at least is responsible for the murder. And a lot of people were saying that his girlfriend had set him up. Who knows at the end of the day? But hey, you take a life, someone takes yours. It's just how it works at the end of the day. Pretty much, I think that society looks at him, being that he was a handsome guy, that kind of softens the character, if you will, of these reported gangsters. But at the end of the day, he took lives and somebody took his, like a revolving door, Bugsy Siegel, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, this is Judy Garland. I'm sure you guys already know who she is. She was a very famous Hollywood actress. I know her best, as many of you do, with playing Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. She played that role when she was 16 years old. And that movie, back in the day, the budget for that movie, with printing posters and advertising and making the movie, came to over $4 million. And that movie was so expensive to make back in those days, it actually didn't turn a profit for the studio until a few years after its release, where they would oftentimes re-release the movie just because they're saying, hey, we haven't made enough money on this movie, we're still in the hole. So eventually, of course, it did make a profit, and of course now it's just a very famous movie altogether. However, Judy Garland, she kind of had a tumultuous career in Hollywood. She was, I think her problem was that, because, even though she was good looking, back in those days, you're competing with Elizabeth Taylor, Jane Mansfield, Jane Russell, all these beautiful Hollywood actresses. Not saying she wasn't beautiful, but she kind of had that, Wizard of Oz sort of typecast. She was a very small woman. She was only about 4'11", and she had, even though she was very pretty, she still had this little girl kind of look to her, and I think that was kind of it typecasted her just because of the whole Wizard of Oz. But she was pretty successful. She was in a bunch of other movies, and however, she never really did shake that image, if you will. And on June 22nd, 1969, at the age of 47, just 2 weeks after her 47th birthday, she died of a drug overdose. I believe it was an accidental drug overdose. So rest in peace to Judy Garland. I know my sister was a big fan of hers, and she would have her pictures up in her room when she was a teenager. This here is Luther James Rabb. He is best known as being in a band called Ball and Jack. It was a jazz rock group. He's originally from Seattle, Washington, and he also was in the band War, and he sang in Santana. He was on their 1976-77 European tour. This is Madeline Pugh Davis. Says on her marker right there, co-creator and co-writer of I Love Lucy, married to Dr. Richard M. Davis, writing partner Bob Carroll Jr., 1943 to 2007. This here is Lana Clarkson. She was a Hollywood actress, just a character actress. She played in some smaller movies, nothing too big. Unfortunately, she's best known for her murder, which occurred on February 3rd of 2003. She was murdered by music producer Phil Spector. She worked at the House of Blues, and she met Phil Spector there and went to his mansion in his limousine. And according to court testimony, the limousine driver waited outside while they were in the mansion, and he remembers hearing a gunshot, and Phil Spector comes walking outside holding a gun, and he told the driver, quote, "I think I just shot her." And of course, a trial is had. And he claims in his defense that Lana put the gun in her mouth and pulled the trigger, which we all know that was not true. And Phil Spector was known back in the day for being really crazy. He always carried a gun on him, and he threatened many people, famous people, with that gun. And there's people that said that they worked with him and they were always uneasy around him, and they were not surprised that he actually took somebody's life. And during the trial, which it took a long time to go to trial, but he was finally convicted of second-degree murder, and he was sentenced to 19 years to life in state prison. This here's Joshua Andrade Galvez. This is a local rapper. He went by the name Mack P Dog, and he was shot and killed on April 6th of 2020. Yesterday was his birthday, so they left balloons and flowers for him. I did a video about his murder back in April on my channel. As of the recording of this video, it's still an unsolved murder. Nowadays, people, they don't want to throw fists. Everybody wants to just pull out a gun and start shooting. He had a very promising rap career. I mean, who knows where he could have been. But it's a very dangerous game, being a rapper. So rest in peace to Mack P Dog. As the sun sets on another beautiful day in Hollywood, I know what you guys are thinking. Why didn't she show this person's grave? Why didn't she show that person's grave? There's many graves here of famous people. And like a boomerang, I always come back. So there will be a future video. God willing, he lets me do one. In the meantime, live, but not live, but still alive by the grace of God, I am Lamont at large. Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Hollywood, Los Angeles, California. I'll see you on the next vlog. Thank you for watching. I always appreciate it. God bless. Peace out.